Someone break Soco's camera, man. Get him out. Yeah.
Violence!
Bob, what's your thoughts on Speaker's Corner in general?
My thoughts on Speaker's Corner in general are that Speaker's Corner has always been a remarkable place since it became what it is, and that it is something that is becoming increasingly precious within our society, the UK, as the liberal establishment continue to chip away at freedom of speech. The Speaker's Corner is governed by all the same laws, but it's just policed differently to give it the culture that it's got. And I think that Speaker's Corner, particularly because of all the cameras, gives Christians a fantastic opportunity to reach out to people right across the world. And I find it embarrassing that the church hasn't grasped that opportunity with both hands. So to just give you an example, Soco Films has been going for a year. We've had nearly 4.5 million views, and at the last count, 13,000 of those views were inside Saudi Arabia, which means that I've spoken to more, potentially, I've spoken to more Arab Muslims inside Saudi Arabia than any other missionary inside the country has done. So it is a fantastic opportunity that we should defend fiercely, and we should expand the concept of freedom of speech from here to the rest of the country, rather than seeing this as some bubble of exoticness within British society.
What do you think about the current state of Speaker's Corner?
The current state of Speaker's Corner, I think it's a shame that people are using violence at the corner, that there's become a bit of a mob mentality where people are being driven out. The whole point of Speaker's Corner is that people come here to speak and other people come here to listen. And in that process, you might get offended and hear something you do not like. And if you don't like it, the best way to do it is to either ridicule it, as Steve does, or to defeat it with a better idea. Not use a kind of mob mentality to drive people out. And I think that the police here are a bit of a quandary as to what to do. There shouldn't be a veto of the mob, but in recent weeks there has been, and that should be stopped.
What do you think is the cause of the problems?
The cause of the problems? Yeah. Poor policing. It's the fact that the police give in to the crowd, the mob, and that encourages a mob to form. If you let a mob win, then they think they can win again. So what it is poor policing. The police, once again, as always, in so many situations, including this one, looking for the path of least resistance to get their thing done, rather than doing their job well. And that's the reason for the cause of the problems.
And what's your reasons for coming to Speaker's Corner?
I'm coming to Speaker's Corner because it's part of a discernment for me. I'm doing a discernment as a Christian in terms of what I feel that my vocation might be. And I initially wanted to get involved with J. Smith, so when I contacted him, I realised that he was leaving. So I contacted him the week before he left. I said, I've come to help you. I'd like to get involved in what you're doing. And he said, I'm leaving next week. So in terms of getting involved, it was part of a discernment for me to discern really whether this is something that God wants me to do here in London, or whether I have a vocation to do something else. Because as part of Christian spirituality, as part of the spirituality of our faith, we seek to find God's vocation in our lives, and part of the process of discernment is that you have to walk the path that you feel you might be called to see if it suits you, if it fits you. So coming to Speaker's Corner is very much part of that. I don't know if I'm going to be here forever or whether it's just for a period of time, which is why when Mansour asked me, he said I was a tourist, because I didn't know really how else to describe it.
What's been your experiences coming here?
Experiences of coming here? Well, on the whole, I have found it stimulating, I have found it energizing, I found that it has given me an opportunity to be challenged in my faith, as well as to challenge other people in theirs. I think the only real benefit to all the cameras and all of this is that it allows us to speak to an audience in the privacy of their own room, that perhaps in this public setting, that same audience might not be willing to go, yeah, I agree with you, because there's too much emotionally at stake. So on the whole, my experiences have been positive. I've had some negative experiences, particularly with certain Islamists at the corner, people who seem to think that they have the right to dominate the corner according to their values. So I've had a couple of, I've had people get really aggressive, shout directly in my ear, shout right in my face. I've been pushed a couple of times, I've been poked, I've been insulted, and it tends to be consistently from the same group of people, which is sad. But you take the rough and the tumble.
What's your aspiration for the future in Speaker's Corner?
In Speaker's Corner is to continue to uphold the name of Christ and to demonstrate that Christ is man's only saviour, and that the Christian way of life is the best alternative to the failures of liberalism, to the failures of communism, to the failures of ethno-nationalism, of nationalism, of Islam, and of all the various other things that oppose the gospel. Because I truly believe that the Christian faith impacts the individual for the better, the community for the better, and society for the better. And it is our only ark, Christ is our only ark, by which when we sit before the judgment seat of God, we can hope to possibly escape. So my aspirations is to continue to work with JC, to build Soco films as an alternative to all the Dawah channels that are pressing their own belief system as a Christian alternative to that.
Anything else you want to say in relation to Speaker's Corner?
Say again, sorry?
Anything else you want to say in relation to Speaker's Corner?
I would say this. I would say that Speaker's Corner is the free. I would say that free speech that is exemplified at Speaker's Corner shouldn't be treated as a novelty. It is something that we need across the UK. Because right now, Speaker's Corner is becoming a bubble of free speech in a world of curated speech. And that is not a healthy society. What we need in a liberal democracy, if it's to work by its own rubrics, is free speech for everyone. So in some ways, Speaker's Corner shouldn't become a tourist attraction, because you should be able to talk like this anywhere in the country. It'll still be a place for quacks, like myself. But it's entertaining, and I would encourage people maybe to have more appreciation for the benefits of freedom of speech. Thank you very much, Leon. God bless you, bro. Look after yourself. Subscribe to Content Over Everything and support the Bentley Fund. Content Over Everything, the second best channel at Speaker's Corner.
We got content.
The second best channel.
I'll ask you a question.
Yeah, of course you can.
You described Saudi Arabia as seeing you. Can you also see the negative side of all the cameras that we now get at Speaker's Corner?
Absolutely. I mean, nothing like cameras is going to be just wholly positive or wholly negative. It's going to be a mixed bag, and then you have to balance what are the positives versus what are the negatives.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that the police now have had to up their game in terms of policing the violence at Speaker's Corner, because everyone doesn't realise that there was violence before the cameras, it's just that the police were able to ignore it. Whereas now, if it's caught on camera, there's pressure on the police to act, So I think there's positives for that. The negatives, of course, is that it allows people to have this fuel, this personal rivalries start to form. But those personal rivalries were there before the cameras, and taking them away will not take away the problem. It will just mean that the police get away with not policing.
I don't think taking away cameras would reduce that problem.
No, the problem would still be there.
So the fact that it leads to them being whipped up during the week and throughout the week, you don't think that adds in any significant way
No, it
to
does.
the problem?
It does, but the way to police society is not to give in to thuggish behaviour, but to oppose it. So if people can get whipped up as much as they want through the films. It's not a justification for coming back next week and acting like a dickhead. The reality is, if someone is coming and being violent at the corner or intimidating, the laws are sufficient. The police should police, not cower to them. If you start taking away cameras, then that means that the police won't have that pressure to act when it's caught on film, because there won't be the evidence. And the reality is that Jay Smith did Speaker's Corner for 20 odd years, and he was punched, spat upon, kicked and stabbed, all before there were cameras. Yes, he was stabbed, and all before there were cameras. Yeah. Now the reality is that the cameras create this frenzy, and that's a bad thing. But people should be self-controlled. You know, the Christian faith teaches self-control. Muslims claim that Islam teaches self-control. Not that we see much fruit of it here, but the fact of the matter is that if someone can't control themselves, that is when the police are supposed to step in and control the person. Not take away the cameras because suddenly they're feeling the pressure of, look at all these problems.
I wonder whether they are going to take away the cameras. If they do that, I'm not sure how practically they will be able to do that, but if they do, will that stop people coming?
No, we'll just get a good phone.
Hidden cameras.
Yeah, because they can't take away the cameras, really. And I think it's cowardice on part of the police that they are even contemplating that fact, because that is again shutting down a freedom of speech. It's freedom of expression, and they're rather than.
But let's face it, they're not the first to do that. Look at YouTube, look at Twitter,
absolutely.
Look what they've been doing.
No, absolutely. We've got this culture developing in our society where we are walking into other people taking away our free speech. If the police take away the cameras, what they're doing is they're taking away free expression. What they should be doing is policing people who can't control themselves. And the police taking away cameras is dealing with the cobwebs rather than the spider.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Good point.
So my advice to the police is do your jobs. Like, if someone is being a dickhead, exclude them from the park. Don't take away the cameras just because it shows how much you're not policing.
So what is your view on why do they not do that?
Because I think that it is a case that the way that the police are trained is they are trained to keep the peace. That's their imperative. Mm-hmm. So they find the path of least resistance to keep the peace, which means that if a mob forms and wants to drive someone out of Speaker's Corner, it is easier for them to acquiesce to the demands of the mob than it is to defend free speech and take the mob on.
And as you pointed out, where does that end up?
Where does it
ends
end
up with the mob
ruling? Exactly. And the human rights law, that EU institution, says that there should be, in terms of the limit on freedom of speech, there should be no veto of the mob. So if the police on the basis of the veto of the mob, they're not policing human rights law, because human rights law says there is no veto of the mob. So what should happen is an American-style situation where the police go, look, if you think this guy's a dickhead and he thinks you're a dickhead, scream at one another all you want. But if you get too aggressive, you stand on that side of the street and you stand on that side of the street and just shout at one another. And that's how they should police it. Just, that's how it should be treated. If you don't like what you're hearing and you can't control yourself, walk away, stand somewhere else, speak against them. But what they're doing at the moment is taking people out of the park, and it sounds like contemplating the removal of cameras. And all that will do is mean that the police get off the hook. That's what will happen.
And would you agree with me that there are a lot of people putting forward a narrative that it's the right that have caused the violence and the problems here, and it's the likes of Tommy Robinson, it's the likes of people who come here and speak out against Islam that are causing the problem, whereas the reality of the chronology of the problems completely predates the likes of Tommy Robinson coming here for half an hour once. It completely predates that. Sarah got his Osman warning, 18 months
before
ago,
Tommy
24
Robinson.
Months ago, way before any one of the FLA, DFLA veterans go
exactly.
terrorism.
All of these,
yet they're forgetting that reality.
Because they're selectively forgetting that reality. I mean, we have a news article that's appeared in a magazine that Soco Films gets cited in which it describes Speaker's Corner as being taken over by the extreme right. And we're going to do a response to that because it's a complete assassination. Not of Soco Films, incidentally, but of the real situation.
Is that the Mel, what the website is? Article.
Yeah, that one. But the point is, Christopher, the Kurdish convert from Islam to Christianity, was attacked before Tommy Robinson.
Again, punched off his ladder.
Punched off his ladder. Jay Smith was attacked before Tommy Robinson. Sarah Garvey was attacked before Tommy Robinson. There are, by the Muslims, there are plenty of examples of people, there are plenty of examples of people being attacked before Tommy Robinson. That is where the aggression has come from. And to blame that on the far right is to simply ignore all the history of what has happened in the last few years here before Tommy Robinson ever came to this place. And the liberal are just using this place to create their own narrative, to villainise the extreme right.
And his presence, his attendance at Speaker's Corner was directly in response to that history of violence going on here, and one group trying to physically intimidate and bully their dominance there.
Absolutely, and whilst we're speaking about that, like Tommy Robinson coming here has had every right to come here, you know, but I will call out the fact that his supporters, not necessarily Tommy Robinson, but his supporters, I saw them myself.
Some.
I think
you probably should be
Yeah,
saying.
you're right. My apologies. Let me correct. Let me
And
correct.
the kingpin.
No, you're quite right. You're quite right. You're quite right to correct me. Some of his supporters, I saw them myself, pulled someone off a ladder. And that is not the spirit. If you came here to defend free speech, that means you're here to defend speech that you don't like as well. Which means if someone wants to get up on a ladder and criticise you and criticise Tommy Robinson, you should let him. You can boo him, you can heckle him, but don't pull him off a ladder.
And you're completely right, and that violence should not have happened. But I will point out that if someone got up in that individual's meeting and put the ladder in close proximity, he would not have been very happy with that situation. It doesn't excuse or make it right, but he was being directly provocative by trying to get up on a ladder within someone else's large meeting. And we know from experience he gets very irate if someone does that to him, or if someone's just shouting on the ground.
I mean, he can get as irate as he wants. No one should have put a hand on him.
No,
they should have booed him, they should have heckled him, they should have ignored him, they should have laughed at him. There's a million ways they could have responded, but pulling him off the ladder was not the way to go.
I agree.
But Tommy Robinson coming here and giving a speech is part of the culture of what it is. Karl Marx gave speeches at Speaker's Corner. Lots of controversial figures have given speeches at Speaker's Corner. So that it's part of the culture, and the fact that, you know, there was even the thought that Muslims could stop Tommy Robinson coming here, you know.
Well, they literally and physically formed a battle line. I mean, it was self-evident. They called themselves into a militaristic line, and some of them have subsequently been excluded for their behaviour on that day.
I think. Can I just say? I think that what needs to happen, if the police really want to stop things getting worse in Speaker's Corner, they need to ramp up the exclusion orders for people that have a history of being a nuisance, being aggressive. Anyone who uses aggression, like physical aggression, because obviously, you know, I shout a lot, you know. That
well, can I give you an example?
Need to be excluded.
Today, a well-known Muslim, Modine, physically threw a drink of lemonade or something in someone else's face.
Yeah.
That was immediately reported to the police. And you know what the police's response was?
Not interested.
If he does it again, we'll give him a warning, or we'll give him an exclusion
And that's
order.
the kind of.
So even throwing your face in a female, throwing your drink in a female's face was not felt sufficient for the police to deal with that individual there.
But do you agree with me, Steve, that the danger is if people start to feel threatened and they can't see appropriate defence coming from the police, they will start to organise themselves to fill the vacuum.
Absolutely.
And that is the danger of what is happening with this soft kind of policing of aggression, is that ultimately if you look to the police and the police go, well, you know, I don't want to get involved in that, then because it's not free expression to chuck your drink, that's assault. It should have been treated as assault.
I was saying earlier is that today, you know, you were saying that you were complaining that in your experience of Speaker's Corner that people have shouted in your face, said abusive words, and possibly pushed or assaulted you in some minor way, or maybe major way. To be honest, Bob, I've seen you do that today.
Right, but what you didn't hear...
I saw.
Yeah, what you didn't hear in that little synopsis you just gave is I said to Leon, you take the rough with the tumble. Because I don't mind people heckling me. I don't mind people insulting me. And I've said this publicly, it'll be coming out through Soco films. I don't mind people heckling me.
Yeah.
Steve, God bless him, when I first came, this guy used to heckle me.
But I'm not
used
talking,
to
I'm
it.
not
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about heckling. There was a guy who wanted to put his bag in front of Mr. Soco Film's
Yep.
camera,
Yep.
and you moved his arm away.
Because, well, I mean, I did that instinctively.
Listen,
No,
Mark.
I have to apologise to that guy.
So that's
Banning
assault,
order.
right? And it's also he. Although Mr. JC has a right to film, I also have a right to do that. And we can
Get his hand out
change
the
that.
way, get his hand out the way. It's crazy.
Yeah.
No,
No, I'm not going to repeat a mistake. I'm not going to repeat. I owe the guy an apology. Yeah.
To be fair, you
What
said-
I'm saying is that we're all hypocrites.
Right, but hold on one second. Hold on one second.
You,
Yeah.
can't,
No,
you,
hold
can't,
on
you
one second.
cannot compare the
This-
level of violence and
I know,
intimidation
but it-
and thuggery between
There is
that
a, hold on. There is a
in our
stark
minds.
difference between me chucking my drink in your face and someone putting his hand in front of someone else's camera and then someone moving the hand down. Technically, legally, they both count as assault. Hold on one second. Here's the other difference. Is now you've pointed out, because I really did that and genuinely did not clock it myself that I'd done that. But now you've pointed it out to me. If I meet that other guy, and I will apologise to him. Something tells me Modine won't be coming back to apologise to the guy who's took the drink.
But
in the face.
it's an escalation of conflict, and actually that's what that guy was saying. The guy with the beard was around religions and Islam and Christianity needing each other. There's a reciprocal kind of relationships that happen both between ourselves and other people and within our minds that is around conflict. And what I would say is that the main issue is that actually we have to be non-conflicting in ourselves and try not to be hypocritical. You know, you talked about people in particular, some people in this corner, not being able to control themselves. And actually this is an example of actually how control is lost in the individual, even in yourself.
If I can reply, again, you're trying to form a moral equivalence between someone moving a hand down out and chucking a drink in the face. Now, I'll be genuine. I honestly did not clock that I did that. I just did that automatically, and I didn't even register it in my own mind. And I'm quite happy to apologise.
It's like throwing
Right.
the drink in their faces, an
Yeah,
emotional reaction.
But hold on. This is the danger of the kind of liberal soppiness culture that we've got in this country. Is they try to create moral equivalents where moral equivalents don't exist, right? Technically, under the law, yeah, they're both assault. But clearly, to any common sense man, there's a difference between those two events. And I'm willing to apologise. Modine will not be apologising. So the thing is, the danger with this kind of narrative that we get from the liberal do-gooders is that they want to create.
Lily livered.
I'm allowed to heckle you, bro. It's Speaker's Corner.
Right.
Yeah, like
You're
the-
speaking.
yeah.
That's technically not heckling,
No,
right?
yeah.
You're the
So, yeah,
speaker.
exactly. So the point
That's
is,
just
the
abuse.
point is. Well, I'm glad you recognise that being a liberal progressive is an abusive term. No, I'm joking. So
I'm going
the
to
point is-
confront
I mean,
you
it's
on that.
especially
The
abusive
point
when
is-
you don't actually know my belief system.
The point
Yeah.
is, the point is, this kind of liberal do-gooder narrative is dangerous because what it essentially says is don't stand up for yourself. That's what it says. It says don't stand up for yourself, don't stand up for your boundaries, your borders, your frontiers. What it says is and ultimately the way that will work out in practice is that the bully wins. If we all follow this guy's logic, the bully wins.
That is
But the
not.
thing is-
that
Actually,
is
if we
not
all follow
liberalism.
your
That is
logic,
not
it's
liberalism. You and I share the same concerns, I believe, on the subject of Islam. Absolutely together with you on that concern. You continually blame it on the liberalism of our society, etc., etc. I wholly disagree with that. I view myself as a left of centre liberal. And it's because of that I stand against Islam, or certainly many interpretations of Islam, which I view as far-right, fascistic, intolerant. It's because of my political position that I stand so fully against that. Yet you continually almost blame the whole problem on the liberal society.
Yeah, I
Whereas-
think you come across to me more as a classical liberal as opposed to a liberal progressive. And the thing is that you come across more like a classical liberalism. And the reason why classical liberals have more in common with Christians is because classical liberalism is a much closer historical movement it grew out of Christianity and is closer to Christianity. Which means classical liberals often find themselves agreeing with Christians, and Christians often find themselves
Maybe you
agreeing
should be
with.
more precise in your definition.
Well, I do. But liberalism, as it is understood today, because let's be honest, most people don't know the distinction.
Well,
between
I mean, to
classical
me,
and
right or
progressive.
wrongly, a substantial bit of liberalism is tolerance. However, we must not, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, we must not be and should not be tolerant of the intolerant. And surely that's part of liberalism.
I wouldn't cut the cake that way, but I get what you're saying.
But you're accusing me of liberalism, whatever it is. But actually, I was
said liberal do-gooder.
Yeah, as a liberal
Let's get it
do-gooder.
right.
But I was accusing you of being a hypocrite.
That's absolutely
nothing
fine.
to do with me being liberal or not.
Yeah, you can call me a hypocrite. I mean, a hypocritus is someone who wears a mask and pretends to be one thing publicly and another thing in private. That's a hypocrite.
I think is they do something, or they say something, but they do something different to what they say.
Maybe he was
What's
criticising
that?
something that he hasn't reached perfection in himself.
Exactly.
What's
Much
that?
like an alcoholic who recognises that he needs to get off alcohol but can't yet bring himself to do it. You know,
I mean,
it's not a it's not a hypocrite not to be perfect. Even if you're striving to perfection, and Christianity is a religion in which we have this perfect ideal: be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Now, all Christians understand that that is an unachievable goal, but the striving towards it and failing is not the same as hypocrisy.
Okay,
Hypocrisy is someone pretending to be something in public, like say being a Dawah missionary, and then sending
Dick pics.
Dick pics.
Is that a good example?
Like that would be an example.
Not
of
naming
hypocrisy.
names.
And just for the benefit, of honesty, otherwise I will then be a
You haven't
hypocrite.
done it, have you, Bob?
No. just for the benefit. Just for the benefit.
anyone out there who's got bombs
Just for the benefit, just so that I'm not a hypocrite, I have to confess publicly that I have struggled with sexuality in my own life, and still do, as a red-blooded man. So I cannot stand in judgment. But the fact that I am willing to confess that publicly means I'm not a hypocrite.
Can I give an example of where you can put across that message that you put across earlier about control, aggressive, shouting, etc., without being a hypocrite? You say, it would be nice if we could work a bit better because we all struggle with that. But actually, you put in the other camp. The problem, it's the older plank in the eye, isn't it? So it's putting it under camp rather than understanding that humanly we do struggle with control, aggression, and communication.
I just want to state that I think me and this brother are working to two different narratives, because Christ said, "I have come not to bring peace to the world, but to bring war." To set fire to the earth, to lay an axe to the root. He talks about that those that choose others above him are not worthy of him. That he's come to take father against son and son against father and daughter against mother. The point of the Christian faith is that it does divide, and I am not interested in any kind of multicultural get-along with the commune.
You're broadening the argument that I'm saying. I'm
But
saying that
you're essentially saying, hold on. You quoted my scripture, right? You misquoted my scripture.
Okay.
Because Christ is teaching his disciples that you take out the plank from your own eye before trying to take out the speck from your brother.
Yeah.
This is how Christians conduct themselves within the community. That is what we do to one another. What that doesn't mean is that we have to follow some soppy kind of spirituality where we can't call out injustice for what it is, or stand up for our own community, our own people, or our own belief system.
I think that's blurring the lines. I think within this issue that you spoke earlier, is that you were talking about another group whilst doing the same things that you're talking about.
Wait. In what second? I am calling out the fact that for 1400 years.
No, that wasn't what you were saying.
So be more specific. I'm not clear what you're
You
accusing.
said I have had bad experiences in Speaker's Corner.
Yes.
People have been shouting right in my face and in my ear. They've pushed me and threatened me, and they've said abusive things about me. And what I said in response to that is that actually I've seen you do 5 out of 6 of those items.
Okay,
today.
so let me reply to that, because as is demonstrated here, I am more than capable of having a calm conversation. If you look at Soco films and you watch the videos, you will see a consistent pattern. I start off having a calm conversation, then usually someone from the Dawah team comes along, starts screaming and shouting, starts ranting and raving, starts getting really aggressive, and I simply stand up for myself.
That's war.
I have no problem with war.
I know.
I am not a pacifist.
I know. You have no problem with killing.
Are you a pacifist out of interest? Are you a pacifist?
War is killing, right? You've got no problem with killing that you when you can justify it. Is that is that correct?
If it's justified, yes.
Yes, if it's justified. Except that you can also say when you discuss with a woman about or somebody about abortion, that there is absolutely no justification to kill.
That's correct.
And there's a bit of a conflict in those.
So I mean, let me just ask you a question. Are you a pacifist?
I don't think that I could be fully defined as a pacifist.
So to call me out for not
doesn't
being,
mean I justify war.
So for if you are not a pacifist. If you are not a pacifist,
there's a continuum.
If you are not a
You're
pacifist,
far up the one end from this.
yeah. Like I mean, it strikes me I'm just not interested in your get along hippie commune narrative. Like I don't care. I do not care if the Christian faith offends you or being a disciple of Christ offends you. If following Christ means that we all get along, brilliant. I'm all for that. Blessed are the peacemakers.
And the cheesemakers.
No, the peacemakers. but if being a disciple of Christ means conflict, then fine. I'm good for that too. Like I just want to follow Christ, and I hope that it means peace, and I would work for peace. But I'm not frightened if it doesn't. What I am frightened of is that on Judgment Day I will come before my Lord, and my Lord will say to me, "You unfaithful servant." That is what I'm afraid of. I want to be able to stand before my Lord, and my Lord say to me, "You good and faithful servant."
And the faith is to love God and to love your neighbour as you do yourself.
Are you a Christian?
That's the faith.
Right, because you speak with these, you keep trying to characterise my Christian faith as if it should fit into your kind of political narrative.
Not really. I'm utilising common Christian
Exactly,
kind of saying.
and that's the problem with common, mate, is it's all too common. You know? Common is like...
It's also a quote from the Bible.
Yeah, opinions are like belly buttons.
But it's
everyone's got one, but they don't hold much
Your
water.
synthesis of it is going to be different from the next person.
No, well, actually no, because there is a historical way that the Christian faith has understood itself. And if you're as rooted and approximating yourself as close to that historical faith as possible, then it is not about your personal opinion. I hope in my whole life that I express nothing new in terms of Christian doctrine. I only want to re-express all that is Christian doctrine. I hope that in all my Christian life I never express a new morality, that I only re-express the old Christian morality. The problem with the kind of narrative that you seem to be following is you want Christianity to fit in your box to work for your political agenda. And I do not care about your political agenda. I want to destroy your political agenda. Because I want my faith.
But you're saying that I'm putting words in your mouth. I now have a political agenda.
Because you're trying to define for me what my faith should be, and that can only be because it suits you.
I said a quote-ish, a rough quote from the Bible. I wasn't defined by mine.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
But then again, it's hard to see with the lights.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
You can't see.
I've struggled on many a time.
So in answer to the question, Christians are called to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, to love our neighbours as ourselves.
That's what I said.
To love our brothers and sisters in Christ, to love our enemies, to love our mother and father. It's an ethic of love. But as you know, a man of your experienced years, there are sometimes points at which two loves can conflict with one another. That you can't love two opposing things, and so you have to arrange that love in a value system. And so that value system, according to the faith, is God first, your brothers and sisters second, your neighbour third, your enemies fourth, your family Well, your family can fit anywhere within the spectrum.
They can be your enemy as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why they
about
can
your mother?
move. They can move up and down. They can move up and down. And then your enemies last. So if I can bless the Dawah team, as I have done, I've bought them books, I've given them books, I've tried to show them love. I will do so. But if ever the love of the Dawah team opposes loving my brothers and sisters, then I will choose to love my brothers and sisters and oppose the Dawah team. So love is not kind of some soppy, gushy kind of, oh, let's all get along in a hippie commune. It can sometimes be hard and sometimes be soft, depending on the circumstances.
That's within your worldview.
That's the Christian worldview.
Well, I would say that would be within your worldview.
It's the Christian worldview. If
Don't
you're going
know
to
if you can
dispute
broaden
that,
the whole of
so
Christian.
bring your evidence. If you want to dispute that, where's your
Well,
evidence?
okay, my dispute of that statement is very broad to say that that's the whole Christian worldview.
But what is your evidence I'm wrong?
Well, I haven't got all the evidence because that's like proving
Do you have
there's something.
any evidence?
Get busy, bro.
I would say that I would have met a Christian who had an opposing view. So does that mean that that's not all Christians then?
No. It would say that opinions are like belly buttons; they don't count for much water.
So
if
we're
I
just talking
met
about-
said,
But anyway, the point
we're
that I was
talking
trying
about
to-
history. This has been put into
No,
practice.
you were talking about a hierarchy of
Yes.
love.
Yes, absolutely. You find me a Christian that says that your love of God should be secondary to anything else.
Well, that wasn't the hierarchy that was being questioned. Really.
No, that is exactly the hierarchy. I said the love of God was
enemies,
first.
The family.
I said the love of God
Yeah,
was
yeah,
first.
yeah.
So now find me a Christian who would dispute
No, but
that.
I was disputing the other hierarchy.
All right,
the
so I'm
secondary
right.
hierarchy.
I am historically right about the first one then.
I think it's clear that would be, but whether I would also imagine there will be some Christians who actually I do know who say, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I don't believe in God. So that anyway,
They're not
this
Christians.
is just exactly.
They're not
But
Christians.
they're self-described.
Who cares what they
but,
describe
no, okay,
themselves
But this is by
as?
the by because
There are men who describe themselves as women.
Because the other issue that I wanted to make, which is I think is a bit more important point, is about what is actually defined as love. And I think that a lot of the way that you talk about the Dawah team is, in a sense, judgment. And I think that actually when we understand our judgment, that is when we actually understand compassion and love.
So let's just deal with that, because there is again this kind of soppy do-gooder attitude that says, oh no.
I wonder if there's a way that you could describe it without that first bit that
What,
you start, the soppy
are you-
do-gooder.
Okay, the do-gooder. There is a do-gooder attitude. Does that meet your criterion? So there is a do-gooder.
Actually, no.
I make Steve laugh. That's great.
Oh, you often make me laugh.
That's great. I'm sure I do. So my point to you is, right, the problem with that.
I don't mind if you call me soppy.
Sorry, that's so good. So the soppy do-gooder. The problem with the soppy do-gooder attitude is that it doesn't understand the difference between judgment and discernment. Okay. So in the Christian faith there is a difference. We are called not to judge because it is not our responsibility to judge. God will be your judge, God will be Steve's judge, God will be my judge. Okay? But I can still discern. If you are an asshole, I can discern that. Yeah? And there is nothing wrong with identifying an asshole for what he is. So if a thug is coming here behaving like a thug, I can call them a thug. And I can discern that they are a thug by them being a thug. And there is no judgment in me discerning that,
I think there is.
or calling it out. So what you're trying to say is we can never make. Are you saying that we can't make any moral judgments?
I think I'm saying play the ball, not the man.
Are you saying that we can't make
I
moral
just said what
judgments?
I'm saying.
Play the ball, not the man.
Yeah.
So
So you're saying that I call them out for being a thug.
Yeah.
Actually, they're a human being with some thuggish behaviour.
So are you saying that we shouldn't oppose the thuggish behaviour?
I'm saying that we shouldn't label people in broad universal terms.
Did you not
That
at
is
the
a
big
definite
one?
soppy
Yeah.
position.
Sorry. Let's be clear. At the beginning, did you not label me a hypocrite?
I said that what you were saying was hypocritical.
Ah, right. Okay. That's a cunning kind of
I'm not
get
sure
out.
if you did.
Cunning get
Precisely
out.
like that.
I mean, I honestly cannot remember whether he called me a hypocrite or just said I was being hypocritical. Did he? Okay.
Did I, or did I
Right.
say, isn't
So-
that,
so-
aren't you being...
No, I think
Well,
you actually said the
everyone
words
can
you are, I
rewind the
think.
tape and find out for
But
themselves.
I did
But
also
my
say,
point
I
is-
did also say that I also am a hypocrite, as is everyone.
Okay, so my point to you is that in terms of dealing with this kind of thuggish mentality, yeah, right. Your kind of soppy attitude will not solve anything. You will just be bullied, and by your position that you're taking up, you are going to drag everyone down with you. So because you want to be a wimp and you want everyone else to be a wimp, you're saying that we all need to get bullied because you don't like the confrontation that comes about by standing up against the bully.
No, actually, I would disagree with that, and I'd say it's not about standing up to things that are attacking you, but actually it's a kind of instigating a level of antipathy towards groups of people by giving broad terms to those people. So when you're here, it's the same as self-defense, isn't it? So if somebody's attacking you in legal terms, you can defend yourself against them.
Do you agree with that?
But you can't go chasing them and then kind of hitting them afterwards. The people that you're talking about, they're not even here, so you're not defending yourself, you're not being pressed by them, you're just talking about them, you have a narrative about them.
Except that they are also broadcasting a narrative about us.
I know. And
So in terms
war,
of,
isn't it?
in
That's
terms
war.
of,
Do it
I-
war.
again, I have no problem with war. In terms of,
But they're not here now. But
I have a question about
They're not here right now. But obviously, when Bob's speaking, they are around him and doing
Many times.
whatever they do. But they're not here right now to accost him
And
or
my,
whatever.
and my argument, which Bob
Can I
disagrees,
just
is
can I
that
finish
we're
my
all
point
doing the
before
same
you
sort of
interrupt?
thing.
Can I just finish my point? My point is that right now there will have been Dawa channels broadcasting a narrative about Christians and about the Christian faith. Okay? Now please know that I am at least more courteous to Muslims because I argue against the Dawa team. I make a distinction between Muslims as a whole and these Dawarists who are coming here and libeling Christians as confused about the Trinity and not knowing their faith, and I am more courteous than to them.
They would say that you libel them.
And I would also say that
You're not addressing what I've said.
I would also say that you accuse people of being in the Dawa team, whether you know them or not.
Well, I would suggest that if I recognise a face as someone who comes a lot, then
They're in that team.
yes. Yes, they broadcast themselves having meals together. We know they work together. We know they're teamed up in cameras. I think that is by every rational definition a team.
They are an organised group.
Well, I don't know about.
I think
I
what's
think-
happening here
I
is
think-
Bob has a very strong position of how he wants to correlate his. Bob has a very strong position on how he correlates his Christian thesis towards Muslims or whatever, and you're coming across as a bit more gentle, telling Bob that he shouldn't speak the way he does. The fact he's passionate and embraces his God and wants to speak the way he does, you can't actually stop him from doing that. But then maybe he's not correlating properly with your more liberal. So I think you both somehow need to correlate together. But maybe now I'm being woolly. And
Yeah, I think my danger, the danger that I see in your position, is that you carve a space for Salafist thuggism. That's what you do. You are a soft apologist. You're one second. You're by the position that you take. Please note, I'm critiquing your position. By the position that you take, you make yourself a useful idiot to Salafists. That's what you've become. And I don't want to follow your folly because you're a your attitudes are a If we embrace your attitudes, we might as well just throw in the towel and all take shahada.
Well, I
If we take your attitude.
I think when you're in a kind of Christian versus Muslim theological war, then I can understand why you might think I'm letting the side down.
No, you're not on my side.
I know, I'm not on your side, I'm not on either side.
Only Christians are on my side.
I know.
And I am only on the side of the Christians.
So I'm not doing anything that kind of allows or
But you do,
supports
because
that.
you
Because I
want
would
to.
also say the same to.
But
to
you
other
want to propose a narrative that makes space for the Salafists. It's kind of a utopian vision of society. Oh, if we could only just get along. The reality of human sin is that your utopian vision is a daydream. And the quicker you let go of your daydream, the better.
Well, you know, I would disagree. I would say
that there's no reality of sin.
How would you summarise your position?
I would say that that actually, when we're in conflict in ourselves, and that's the conflict that we have to resolve first before we start kind of trying to solve the world's problems.
Well, I think if everyone waited to do that before they tackled the world's problems, nothing would get done.
And I think that
Because-
if everyone was doing it, then there wouldn't be the world's problems.
No,
You have
because
to wait a long time because nobody can be perfect,
No one
can
can
they?
be perfect.
Nobody can be 100%
The
perfect
very-
in
one
themselves.
second.
So how are you going to wait to be absolutely 100% perfect in yourself
Exactly.
to then save everybody else? You know?
Exactly.
And I would
No,
say
can
that
I-
things
can I-
are 100%.
Can I just
perfect.
right? The reality is, as Christians, we do strive for perfection. Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. But we also know as Christians that if you wait to be perfect, you will do nothing. So as Christians, we are called to work from where we are and to use our gifts and abilities for the advancement of the kingdom of God. Now, you have framed that consistently through our discussion with the language of war. All right? And I've just rolled with it. But let us be clear.
You said I'm not against war, you said.
Yeah, exactly. But you framed it as Islam v Christianity. You've used the term and war. I have consistently, because there are some times where I get ahead of myself and I speak wrongly. But if you look
okay, you're figuring it.
yeah, of course I am. By Christ, not by you. But like in terms of in terms of what my whole experiment here is to.
Is this an experiment?
It's a discernment. Is to critique the ideology, to make a distinction between Muslims as a general population, Islamists and Daoists. Yeah? But I am not embarrassed to call out Islamists for what they are, or Daoists for what they are, or liberals for what they are, because frankly, you know, if we were all like you, not only would, I mean, here you are tackling the world's problems, right? I mean, you're talking to me about my problem. Have you sorted all your problems out?
I don't really have any problems.
Wow.
Oh, wow, you're
you
a
perfect?
perfectionist.
No.
All right, hold on. Now, didn't your logic be sort yourself out before you sort out the problems of the world? So what are you doing here talking to me?
Having fun.
Having fun.
Can I have a question?
Yes.
In a video, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, you said that Christians should take back Constantinople.
Yes.
Hey, leave Constantinople alone.
Constantinople belongs to the Christians.
Greeks.
Are those Greeks? Are those Greeks Orthodox? Yeah. So are we talking about Christians?
Yes.
Right then.
Okay, so I don't know where to go from here. Okay, wait, what other cities do you want? Do you want like Damascus?
Well, all of North Africa, the Middle East, Turkey, Greater Armenia. You know.
Whoa, did you say Middle East?
Yeah, most of the Middle East.
Oh,
Not all of it.
Alright. So like, is it going to be no Muslims allowed, or just like, hey, Christians allowed to
Dude,
roll?
we're talking fantasy here. This is not going to happen.
All right, yeah, it's just a little bit.
It is just to point out the fact. The reason why I said that is to point out the fact that those are Christian lands taken by force. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love it to, if through a legal political system, you know, like Israel was established. You know, land was carved out of the Middle East and given to the Jewish people. If something could happen like that for the Christians in the Middle East, I'd be all in favour of it. And including, that's Greater Armenia. Remember, Muslims are occupying northern Cyprus right now. They're occupying southern Kosovo, southern Serbia right now. You know, Christians are being persecuted right now, and the liberal establishment doesn't want to do anything about it. You know, Hagia Sophia is a Christian church that is being desecrated right now. Yeah? And the world wants to pretend. And the church, because of our useless leaders, is silent about all of these things.
And we're told that Azir Bibi would not be given asylum by the British government because they were worried about what would happen in Britain.
That is
She came
exactly
here.
what they've said. Now, what does that tell you about what the liberal establishment? They accuse
whatever you
people.
wanna call it.
Yeah. They accuse people of Islamophobia. Is that not a form of Islamophobia? I am afraid of what? Violence towards one individual? Riots on the street? What are their security concerns? And who are their security concerns about? You know? So, Are we all done? You got anything more to say? Do-gooder?
No, you know, I can't help it.
Yeah.
Shoot
Anyway,
me.
it's a pleasure
Shoot
speaking
me.
to you. You look after yourself.
Take care,
Godspeed. Steve, as always, mate.
See you on Thursday.
Oh yeah, the thing. Yeah. I will try.
Is that the secret Illuminati?
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
We're having a Freemason meeting.
Yeah.
Like,
He's going to try and tackle his sexuality.
I'm not going to respond to that.
Sorry. I'm going to let you forget that.
Anyway,
Well done, Bob.
God bless.
God bless, Bob.
Have a lovely night, guys. I'll see you in maybe a week. Peace.